This model, we will introduce you to the entrepreneurial culture. What is entrepreneurial culture? Then talk about entrepreneurial culture characteristics, the processes that structure the entrepreneurial culture, the dimensions of entrepreneurial culture, summarize the model of entrepreneurial culture, talk about promoting entrepreneurial culture within a community, and look at the difficulties of the entrepreneurial culture establishment. And finally, give you a conclusion. So, discussing about cultural features, attitudes, and entrepreneurship is nothing new. More than 100 years ago, Max Weber studied the relationship between religious ethical motivations and entrepreneurship. He put forward the argument that Protestant labor ethics had made a substantial contribution to the development of modern capitalism because it had changed the attitude towards labor. Even if religious motivations and working life nowadays may be less relevant, the debate on cultural features, enterprise-related attitudes, and entrepreneurship has remained quite a topical issue. First, however, the concept of culture should be clarified and defined. The influence of cultural features on business foundations activities will be addressed and the results of empirical studies presented. The concept of culture is very complex and is used with various meanings. Under a pragmatic definition, one can say that any group of human beings whose thinking and acting differs from that of other groups has a culture. Hofstede, 1994, likewise emphasizes the relationship between culture and group affiliation. He clearly defines culture as collective programming of the mind, which distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from another. According to Fukuyama from 2001, culture encompasses the values, norms, interpretations, and modes of behavior that characterize society or other social groups. The different definitions clearly show culture to be always a collective phenomenon, at least in part with humans living in the same social environment or belonging to the same group. Accordingly, any human being belongs to different social groups and thus carries different layers of mental programming. In addition to a national level, which is commonly understood under the term culture, there is also a regional level, an ethnical, religious, and gender level. Culture is learned consciously and unconsciously. It should therefore be distinguished from human nature on the one hand and from the individual personality on the other. Are passed on in socialization processes. That is why culture cannot be changed in the short term. It has a long-term character. Against this background, it becomes evident at this point that political programs can only have a conditioned and long-term impact on cultural features. In recent years, research has been increasingly devoted to the subject of attitudes and their role in the process of business foundation. Unlike cultural features and personality traits, attitudes towards business foundation have been proved less stable. They are influenced by environmental factors and may alter as time passes. The decision to become self-employed or to start one's own business is influenced by a number of factors: professional background, the level of education, current employment, personality traits, and the social and regional environments also have an impact on the startup decision. Individual factors alone cannot explain why certain individuals become self-employed and others prefer paid employments. Albert Shapiro already referred to this phenomenon 20 years ago when he characterized the business foundation process as overdetermined. So, looking at this model, we can see that culture can influence economic activity in variable ways. Firstly, culture is known for influencing attitudes towards work and consumption. Secondly, culture has an influence on the organization of economic activity and the shaping process of institutions' effectiveness. Besides, culture has an impact on social networks and confidence building within social groups. The primary interest of the present study is what kind of influence culture may have on business startup activities. Such a relationship may be given in different ways. Mostly analyses on the relationship between culture and startup activities or entrepreneurship are conducted by considering attitudes towards entrepreneurship or business foundation. One proceeds from the fact that cultural features influence attitudes towards startups and vice versa. Such a relationship between culture, attitudes, and startup activities may exist on individual as well as on regional and group levels. There is a direct relationship on the individual level when, on account of cultural features, many persons exhibit a positive attitude towards business foundation and, due to such an attitude, decide to become self-employed or to start a business. In such a case, there is a direct relationship between culture and startup activities because of the potential self-employed person's positive mindset. This argumentation concurs with those of Schumpeter in 1934, McClelland and Krisner in 1985, who likewise describe a direct linkage between attitudes and business foundation activity. Further, a relationship between culture and foundation activity on the societal level may exist. Etzioni, 1987, argues that the values and norms predominant in the social environment of an individual may have an influence on his or her propensity to start a business. In line with this argument, a culture averse to business foundation may suppress startup activities. This would, for instance, be the case when entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship have a bad image within a society or a region, and the individual therefore does not consider this option of livelihood, even though he or she does not harbour any reservations towards entrepreneurs. Nevertheless, the influence can be positive. Some communities foster an entrepreneurial culture as well. Silicon Valley, part of the San Francisco Bay Area, is famous as a launching pad for startup technology companies. Families may promote entrepreneurship as well. Parents who encourage their children to take risks and teach them the value of self-employment may raise kids to become future entrepreneurs. In all cases, there is a relationship between culture and business foundation activity, not only on the individual level, but also on the level of social groups, region, or society. To conclude, an entrepreneurial culture can be described as an environment where someone is motivated to innovate, create, and take risks. In a business, an entrepreneurial culture means that employees are encouraged to brainstorm new ideas or projects. When work time is dedicated to these activities, it is called entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial culture characteristics. The culture is only a construct, yet its impact is undeniable. To leverage it, we must first understand it. Some characteristics of entrepreneurial culture are shared values, growth through excellence and innovation, collective responsibility for experimentation, job execution is incomplete without improvement, the skills, competence upgraded and nurtured continuously, learning to unlearn and learn, job rotation for wider perspective and cross-pollination, skills for environmental scanning, in-depth analysis, risk evaluation, communication and collaboration. The staff, optimal and multi-skilled, ownership and belonging, inclusion of innovation for performance evaluation, growth and rewards. Other characteristics include style, participative, tolerant ambiguity, openness to new ideas, supportive risk-taking, strategy, long-term focus, innovative problem-solving and performance improvement. Risk-taking is the essence of business. Characteristics such as structure, limited horizontal layers and vertical differentiation, cross-functional task teams, dedicated team for nurturing creativity, and systems, simple, flexible, and evolving systems, result-orientated rather than process-orientated approach, quick approval mechanism for innovative ideas. So the process that structured the entrepreneurial culture. In a survey of 70 leading entrepreneurs from 48 countries around the world, the respondents were asked to rank the most important factors in the process that structures their entrepreneurial culture. As a result, identification of opportunities, differentiation, creative teams, stimulating partners, and role models were considered as the most important factors for a vivid entrepreneurial culture. We look at the process that structures the entrepreneurial culture. Researchers have begun to stress out the idea that the identification of opportunities can lead to a competitive advantage, the individual entrepreneur's ability to recognize opportunities, and thus a highly beneficial aptitude. Most opportunities do not appear out of the blue, but result from the entrepreneur's alertness to possibilities and knowledge of how to exploit them, and from fine-tuning the mechanisms needed to identify potential opportunities at an early stage. The types of exploitable opportunities and the mechanisms delineate the character of the entrepreneurial culture. For example, exploiting financial opportunities will generally develop into a finance-oriented entrepreneurial culture. The exploitation of opportunities to introduce new products or develop new and different products and services will be discussed in the section dealing with the marketing-related aspects of the entrepreneurial culture. There's also visions that plays a major role. Dreams, hopes, desires, creative idea, the mission statement, the main goals, the business plan, practical action plans. However, since a vision usually reflects dreams, hopes, or desires, they are often quite undefined and do not necessarily match the presently accessible or potentially available resources. The vision of a venture should be clearly defined by developing a mission statement. The purpose of such a document is to put the spotlight on how the business should be established and run in order to realize a profit or a goal. Mission statements set practical goals, and these underlie the business plan and the practical action plans. The business culture of the firm is derived from the vision, while the behavior comes from the entrepreneurial culture. The dimensions of the entrepreneurial culture. Any organization's entrepreneurial orientation or culture can be understood by examining how it is correlated to 5 dimensions of autonomy, aggressive competitiveness, risk-taking, proactiveness, and innovativeness. Autonomy refers to whether an individual or team of individuals within an organization has enough of freedom to develop an entrepreneurial idea and then organize its implementation. In an organization that offers high autonomy, people are offered the independence required to bring a new idea to fruition, free of corporate bureaucracy's restraints. When individuals and teams are unhampered by corporate traditions and norms, they are able to more effectively investigate and successfully implement new ideas that have beneficial impact on the whole organization. In some cases, an autonomous unit eventually becomes completely distinct from the parent company. For instance, when Motorola spun off its successful semiconductor business to create Freescale. Innovativeness refers to persuasion of creativity and experimentation. Some innovations are based on existing skills to create the improvements, while more radical innovations require brand new skills, creative thinking, and readiness to go outside of the box. In any case, the main goal of innovativeness is to develop new products, services, and processes. Those organizations that are innovative and open up to new ideas tend to reap off more benefits of their stronger performance than those that are not. However, the question of how firms generate the types of new ideas that meet customers' complex needs is still open. Such worldwide famous innovator as Google has found a few possible answers. For example, Google's 2 most popular features of its Gmail, thread sorting and unlimited email archiving, were first suggested by an engineer who was fed up with his own email woes. Google allows its employees to spend a portion of their work time on projects of their own for the purpose of creating new innovations for the company. This illustrates how different entrepreneurial orientations dimensions, such as autonomy and innovativeness, can reinforce one another. Competitive aggressiveness. Competitive aggressiveness is the tendency to intensely and directly challenge competitors rather than trying to avoid them. Aggressive moves can include price cutting and increased spending on marketing quality and production capacity. For example, Ben & Jerry's marketing campaigns in the mid-1980s attempted to limit distribution of Ben & Jerry's products. In response, Ben & Jerry's "What's the Doughboy Afraid Of?" advertising campaign to challenge competitors' actions. Although aggressive moves helped Ben & Jerry's, Too much aggressiveness can undermine an organization's success. A small firm that attacks larger rivals, for instance, may find itself on the losing end of the price war. Besides, a reputation for competitive aggressiveness can damage a firm's chances of being invited to join alliances that might help to develop new organization strengths and decrease the weaknesses. Executives must be aware of risks referred to competitive actions that destroy opportunities for future collaboration. Proactiveness is the tendency to anticipate and act on future needs rather than reacting to the events after they already took place. A proactive organization is one that follows an opportunity-seeking approach. Such organizations act before the market demand has been already shifted. They are frequently either the first to enter new markets or fast followers that improve on the initial efforts of the first movers. Proactive executives have built a profitable niche in a world that is technologically, environmentally, and politically turbulent. Risk-taking refers to the tendency to engage in bold rather than cautious actions. According to Simon, Houghton and Equino in 2002, despite the belief about entrepreneurs that they are chronic risk-takers, entrepreneurs do not perceive their actions as risky, and most take actions only after using planning and forecasting to reduce uncertainty. So summarizing the model of entrepreneurial culture, the preceding section, it identifies 5 distinct dimensions that were generated a priori based on an interpretation of the academic literature on entrepreneurial culture. For example, existing definitions and descriptions, cultural subtypes related to entrepreneurial culture, and insights from the practitioner literature on entrepreneurial culture. These 5 dimensions are thought to capture the necessary and sufficient characteristics and attributes that constitute an entrepreneurial culture. An entrepreneurial culture was defined as a pattern of values, assumptions, and practices shared within an organization that is centrally concerned with opportunities, where opportunity is the creation of new value to society in part or in whole. This proposed framework represents a comprehensive view of entrepreneurial culture that theoretically describes the various facets which describe an organizational culture. Upon reviewing previous definitions and descriptions of entrepreneurial culture, characteristics and attributes such as innovation, risk-taking, learning, creativity, and collaboration, they were prominent. However, when reconciled with other literature in the entrepreneurship field, it appeared that other concepts important to entrepreneurial firms and their organizational cultures were left out. In particular, conceptual dimensions that would help explain not just how opportunities might be recognized and discovered and or created, but also acted on, did not seem to be accounted for. This proposed 5-dimension framework aims to comprehensively describe entrepreneurial culture. As a cultural subtype, it aims to accurately describe entrepreneurial culture as an organizational culture centrally concerned with opportunities. The literature on entrepreneurial culture appears a bit ambiguous. Minguzzi and Passero's definition speaks of entrepreneurial culture as a composite of values, skills, experience, and behaviors, where a composite implies the additive combination of 2 or more things. Examining the various descriptions of entrepreneurial culture suggests similar lists of combined characteristics with, and for example, a firm is more entrepreneurial when its organizational culture encourages a broad array of new ideas, experimentation, and creativity. As another example, organizations that desire to be highly entrepreneurial must develop an entrepreneurial culture that includes such factors as the ability to learn and to focus on markets. In contrast, there are no examples of the characteristics and attributes of entrepreneurial culture being described as an intersection or product of these various aspects. If we look at this slide, it shows us the summary of entrepreneurial culture in the 5 subdimension model: organizational enthusiasm, stakeholder alignment, learning and development support, opportunity-driven change, and cohesiveness. So the definition of organizational enthusiasm is a pattern of values, assumptions, and practices demonstrating an excitement and passion for the organization, its goals and purposes. The stakeholder alignment is a pattern of values, assumptions, and practices demonstrating the importance of building and maintaining mutually beneficial relationships with key stakeholders such as customers, suppliers, partners, and investors. Learning and development is a pattern of values, assumptions, and practices demonstrating individual and group self-improvement, learning, and professional development. Opportunity-driven change, a pattern of values, assumptions, and practices demonstrating a willingness to change in order to identify, develop opportunities and execute on them. Cohesiveness is a pattern of values, assumptions, and practices demonstrating organizational members' bond and commitment to each other and the organization, irrespective of circumstance. So promoting an entrepreneurial culture within the community, the conditions required for establishing an entrepreneurial culture are identification and promotion of role models. Women entrepreneurs, for example, the ladies who lost their jobs in the textile sector and created Charm & Sud, a rural women entrepreneur partnership. They came on television to explain how being laid off from an ailing textile industry was for them a blessing in disguise. It allowed them to unveil their entrepreneurial potential and leadership abilities. Role of media, for instance, in the promotion of entrepreneurship as a business model. Until recently, the local TV ran a weekly documentary, Portrait Dell, in which a local woman entrepreneur was portrayed as to her new place in society as an economic and social agent. Similarly, a few newspapers reserve a page regularly to promote entrepreneurial initiatives. The education system, entrepreneurship models in the curriculum at different levels. Entrepreneurship education is now beginning to be anchored in tertiary education curricula. We have now moved from the old paradigm whereby entrepreneurship was to be taught only in business faculties. The present SuperGem is a living example of the new paradigm when the subject is available to all undergraduates from all fields. A fashion and design student, all the others in fact, need to know the basic business and entrepreneurship skills that are required to start a business or to act entrepreneurially, to lead and innovate in their employer organizations. There's a period of incubation, entrepreneurship development programs spread over a period of time and not one-off initiatives. Initiatives like La Semaine de l'Entrepreneuriat are beneficial for general awareness, but the enthusiasm soon dies away after the caravan has left. What is truly beneficial for culture change is a planned process that uses all the avenues mentioned in this section over a long period with set objectives and performance targets. In Finland, for example, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial culture was developed as a result of a planned entrepreneurship decade, that is 10 years of cultural change. This can take the form of entrepreneurship education starting at primary or secondary education level, targeting rural women with microcredit schemes, and so on. The participation of leaders, political, business, opinion. Political and religious leaders promote entrepreneurship as a solution to current economic problems. As mentioned earlier, under leadership, a strong charismatic leadership is required to transform a community, to change the mentality from qualifying to get a government job, to taking charge of oneself by being self-employed, requires psychological push that can be facilitated by people who can influence the community. The first people to come to our mind are the political, social, and religious leaders. So what are the difficulties faced in establishing an entrepreneurial culture? Ignorance, employees' laziness, fear of the unknown, religious and cultural constraints. Creating an entrepreneurial culture with an organization drives many benefits. However, every coin has two sides, and this case is not an exception. Establishment of a powerful entrepreneurial culture is not an easy task, hence the process must include some risky challenges. First of all, the people might fail to capture the important role of entrepreneurship in poverty alleviation as an example. Such an attitude is called ignorance, and it can be overcome through awareness-raising activities, for instance. Secondly, in the communities who got used to being assisted and led by the company's management, the lack of entrepreneurship can exist simply due to the employees' laziness. Why would they start thinking and acting outside of the box if the bow is so comfortable and predictable? Also, the possibility of fear in case of entrepreneurship is a common reason why companies procrastinate with introduction of entrepreneurial orientation. Not many people are so open to trying new approaches out. especially in the world of business, where any wrong step can have a dramatic effect on the whole company. Moreover, religious and cultural constraints should be taken into consideration. Some communities or societies might perceive business and profit-making as being against their beliefs and values. In addition, the already established entrepreneurial culture requires a common effort to maintain it in a way that avoids such risks as employee conflict and perceived inequity and jealousy. In these cases, the employees should have a friendly environment to open up about their concerns and express their feelings. Another issue might be insufficient reward systems and problems associated with balancing new initiatives with already existing responsibilities. That is why the management should develop effective inside the company monitoring systems, stay up to date and disseminate among each other new practices regarding the topic and innovative problem-solving solutions. Difficulties are not easy to overcome. However, a right mindset and the willingness to make changes will definitely help to start the shift towards progress in creating a successful entrepreneurial culture. So in conclusion, organizational cultures influence new and existing members, motivates and cautions them, shapes and conforms their thinking and behaviors, creates structure within the organization, and builds routines and traditions that are held with emotion. As a result, an entrepreneurial culture has been argued to be a powerful force within organizations to enhance their innovative abilities and provide permission to fail and try again. Entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. Thanks for your attention and happy learning.